The Sciforror Film Podcast. Hello, welcome to this extra episode of the Sciforror Film Podcast, and I am very pleased to be joined today by UK Screen Princess Dani Thompson. Hi, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much.
Good.
Thank you for being on the show. It's really
No
good to have you
worries.
here. I know you're very busy most of the time doing your own podcast and other things.
Yes, not today though.
Um, so I want to start off, what I normally do with people is just asking a little bit about your background as far as acting goes and how you first got into doing sort of horror stuff.
Okay, so I started out as a model, and then as I was getting a bit older and I wanted to, work out what I was going to do next, I ended up enrolling at a drama school in London, which is really handy. It was very close to where I lived. It was International School of Screen Acting. So trained in screen acting, and you basically did everything that you do at other drama schools, but really the focus was always on being on camera. So rather
Mm.
than stage, it was all, camera angles and lighting and all of that kind of stuff. So I didn't set out just to do horror at all. I thought along with everybody else, you'd leave drama school and be going to all these auditions, doing all these different things. And then I because I think through the modeling, I'd ended up going on a ghost hunting show, which was presented by Emily Booth, and uh, it was a Gore Zone magazine. And a couple of the crew members were making horror films at the time, and I was chatting to them, and they said, "Oh, we've got something for you in this." And I did that, and then it just kind of spiraled, and it all became,
Yeah,
I did audition a lot at the beginning, but after doing a few horror films, it all became very word of mouth, and I just kind of found myself kind of put into that horror niche, which is great. I couldn't be happier with the way it worked out.
yeah, no, it's funny how many people kind of go into it without actually intending to go into
Mm,
it. First off, I looked up online. I saw that I didn't realize this. You were born in Australia, and
I
then
was.
your family moved to the UK when you were about two.
Yeah, so yeah, I was born in Australia, but my dad's originally from the northeast, so it's where I actually live now, which is weird because I'd never lived here until the last, 2 years. Um, he'd actually lived in Norfolk when at some point before as well, and they ended up then moving to Norfolk, which is where I grew up, because he was working for an airline.
Right.
So he went to work at Norwich Airport. So I grew up in Norfolk, and then before I went to London, and I have now found myself in the northeast.
I was I mean, you started on quite early, really. I mean, I know you were doing modeling before, but your screen acting uh, properly started it's sort of like 2009, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I'm going to take your word for it. So yeah, it must have been. So I think I went to drama school. I think I graduated in 2010, and I had done a couple of small roles on TV and film before going to drama school. And it was having done them was, what made me decide I wanted to go to drama school. I think when you kind of go on a film set, you realize how much you don't know. And
What?
then when I decided that's what I wanted to go into, that was the kind of the career path I wanted to take.
But
That's when I
then
ended up.
you did your first horror in 2011, which was only sort of like a year after you graduated.
Yeah, so it was literally immediately. I think I'd gone and done this Gore Zone ghost hunt thing. I might even have been at drama school at the time still, or had just left. And yeah, it was kind of immediate. I mean, I did do a couple of the, the British gangster films and things as well, which I feel
Yeah.
like it's a rite of passage, isn't it? Everybody
Yeah.
has to do a couple of those. And but that's not really the kind of film that I like. I mean, I've always been a horror fan, so it's nice to be able to, work in horror as opposed to doing gangster film after gangster film.
I must admit, I was not surprised, but I didn't realize how many things you'd done because you got. When I looked at IMDb, you've got 71 entries as previous bookings and 15 as upcoming.
Well, do you know what the thing is with IMDb? I'd say like knock 25% of that off because a lot of the time people can add you to a project and the project never happens and the
Oh, right.
credit kind of stays there. So that's happened a few times. Or there's been films that we've shot and then they've never seen the light of day and that, they're never going to. They're kind of disappeared into some kind of vortex. So and also with future films as well, people kind of say, "Oh, do you want to do this?" And you say yes,
Yeah.
and then it never happens. Like you never hear back, and the script never gets sent. And so I've done a lot, but I won't have done as many as it says.
So, I mean, you obviously enjoy doing horror stuff,
Yes.
but I mean, have you ever really thought that you want to break out of that a bit and do other things?
Um, yeah, I mean, I suppose because I think as an actor, you want to play lots of different types of characters, and I think, you know, I have a certain look, and I'll keep getting booked to play characters that, somebody might have seen you in something, and they have a character that's similar, and that's how you kind of end up typecast, which is fine because I'd rather that, and I'm working. But at the same time, I mean, I'd like to do dramas. I mean, I wouldn't like to do British. I'd love to do Home and Away. That's probably everyone's going to turn off now. No, I'd love to be Home and Away. I was a big Home and Away fan growing up, and
Yeah.
I'd get to go to Australia. Yeah, like dramas or yeah, different kinds of things. But I
Yeah.
mean, I'd like to always be able to come back to horror.
I mean, you've got your own podcast now, which is the Screen Princess
Yes.
podcast, which is on uh, YouTube and Spotify and
Mm.
other places like that. What made you decide to start doing that?
Well, I moved to the Northeast, so I think I'd been in London 16 years, and I'd come to realize that a lot of my work, apart from working a lot in Southend and Romford, apart from those, and that was, a couple of different film companies, I was working with them a lot. Apart from that, my films are all over the place. Like last year, I was in Texas, and then, I'm all over the country. And I thought I don't need to really be in London. I think when I was younger and I was enjoying London and I was partying and I was making use of London. I think, God, I was paying like, an extortionate mortgage and like high service charges to live somewhere that, and I don't really need to. And I wanted to live by the sea. So I ended up relocating to the Northeast. And then it took me a while to kind of find somewhere to live and settle in and renovate and everything. And then once I'd done all of that, I was like, I've got all of this time on my hands. I don't work all of the time. I mean, I've got various different things going on, but I just thought, well, I could do a podcast. And another thing is a way of being able to catch up with a lot of the people that I have worked with, or a lot of my friends back in London that are in the horror industry and various, doing different things. It was a good chance to kind of have catches up with them. Catches up, that's not really a
Yeah.
sentence, is
Oh,
it? You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
but I mean, outside of the film thing, that I've seen you've written for Gorefest magazine, and
Mhm.
you also are in a band, I believe. Hex.
Yes. So I grew up loving the Spice Girls, and I had this idea ages ago of putting together, a few Scream Queens and doing like a novelty song for, creating this kind of novelty horror girl band and doing a song for Halloween. And then I think lockdown happened and kind of, pulling people together wasn't really working. And one of my friends, Megan Lockhurst, she actually is an actress and she's done a little bit of horror. I think she prefers action, but she's done a bit of horror. But she's actually a really good songwriter. And I
Mm,
said to her, well, do you fancy it? Do you fancy doing this? And myself, her, and another girl called Cheryl Neve, also an actress, we'd all met on a film set of a film called Mannequin, and
yeah.
we'd become best friends. So when I said to Megan, do you fancy doing it? And she said yes. And I said, well, really, then I'd like to do it with the three of us if we can rope Cheryl in. And she said yes. So we did a Halloween song, which Megan wrote, which was super fun. And then we did a Christmas song last year. And yeah, I mean, we're not serious as a girl band. It's more like best friends that will sometimes do something. If we have an idea for a song, Megan will write it and we'll record it. But it's not,
Cool. Cool.
we're not
But I
about
did,
to go on tour anytime soon.
but I did see that you actually released an album in 2020 called Vamp.
Yes, I did personally.
Yeah.
Um, and that was a collaboration with Will Metheringham. And I'd worked on a film with him before, and I think he'd had me guest on a track for his band, and I had never done any kind of music at the time. And he asked me to do it, and I was like, yes, because I just thought it sounded fun. And then he had these other songs. He said, well, actually, I've got these other songs, don't really work for our band. Do you fancy doing them? So we recorded one or two. I think I went up, it was in Hull. So I traveled up from London to Hull, recorded maybe one or two songs. And then he said, well, maybe we should make this an album. And I just like trying new things and it was fun. So that did happen.
Cool. Cool. I also interested in seeing that with Cheryl Neve, you
Mhm.
also started a company doing murder mystery games.
Yes. So this was a lockdown baby. So Cheryl and I kind of bubbled a bit in lockdown. She came and stayed with me in London for a while. And I think I don't know about most people. I spent a lot of lockdown drinking Prosecco. That was kind of it passed the time. It was either hiking in forests or drinking Prosecco. And we were sat, and I think we were drinking Prosecco, having pizza, and she'd actually had a birthday in lockdown. And obviously you couldn't have a party and you couldn't get people together. So she ended up buying this online murder mystery thing, casting her friends, and she's got friends all over the world. And we ended up doing this via Zoom. But it was really hard to follow. Like the scripts weren't very good. They were written kind of in the third person. So if, you know, even for us as actors, we were like, well, this is really weird and this is really hard to follow. So for anybody who is not an actor or is not in the industry, this is really tough to follow.
Yeah.
We thought we could do this. We can write scripts, and she writes a lot of crime and she writes a lot of kind of historical wartime stuff. And then I come in with the horror. So we ended up just deciding then and there, and I think she got her laptop out and ended up registering the company at that point when we still had Prosecco in hand and ended up starting the company. But it's we don't write them too often anymore. We've got a set amount on the website, and every year we maybe write one or two each, and we'll add to it, and then we take like custom orders if anybody wants a bespoke murder mystery for their event.
That's
We
cool.
actually did quite well with some people in Kuwait kept buying them. They literally wanted one after another, so that was good for a while. And they'd give us theme. They wanted one set around a yoga retreat and one set around a birthday party. So we get a bit of that as well.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Mhm.
Um, Going back to the films, to the horror films and that. I mean, I've seen you in a few. I had the good luck of being an extra in one of the anthology films that you were in, the video shop, Tales of Horror 2, Tales of
Well,
Terror 2.
it's actually, I know this isn't going to be going out live today,
Yeah.
but the pre-sales for Video Shop Tales of Terror 2 are happening tonight at 8 o'clock. So obviously by the time this goes out, they will be live. So
Yeah.
get that in there.
Oh, cool. No, that's really good. Yeah, I didn't
Mhm.
realize that.
Yes.
Um, but so I mean, you said that you tend to sort of play the same sort of character in the films. Do you feel that that's ever been a problem or?
Not really. I mean, I quite like playing sort of I like playing a baddie and I like playing a bitchy character and I like playing these kind of strong characters. I think I don't know whether you saw Power Tool Cheerleaders as well, and it's a kind of a similar type of character to Paula Valentine, who I play in Video Shop. But
Yeah,
actually, with the first Video Shop, I think there were 5 segments, and I was in maybe 4 of the 5 segments, and I got to play different characters. And then also I play another character in the wraparound, and then Paula Valentine comes back. So she's a character that's she's kind of been in a few different film universes, actually. People have used her. I know Tony Marden's used her for Witches of the Sands. And um, but no, I don't really have a problem with it. I mean, occasionally somebody will say, actually, I feel like you could probably do something else. And then I do like the challenge. It's nice to be given a different type of character. But at the same time, I think I'm probably better at playing those kind of stronger characters, or baddies. I don't know whether, I think it's like dark hair and blue eyes, and I must have a baddie look. But
You also got into filmmaking yourself because
mm,
you wrote a screenplay for a film called Serial Caller,
yes,
which came out in 2013. Did it?
it did. Um, yes. So Serial Caller was a film I had an idea for probably before drama school when I was modeling. And I thought, oh, well, a scenario of like girls in a studio and what would happen if there was a serial killer. But at the time, this is way before I was even thinking about acting or anything like that. And I think after drama school, which we also did writing modules at drama school, and
Right.
I've actually enjoyed writing, I thought I could write this and you'll see what we can do with it. And I had no clue really about how to produce a film or anything, and managed to find an investor who went with it. It was like the easiest way in. I mean, it wasn't without its problems. I mean, he did rewrite the script a few times, and we were like taking bits out and putting bits back in, hoping he wouldn't notice. He changed a lot of it, so we didn't end up with the film that we wanted. He for crew, he'd used people that he wanted, and some of the cast were people he wanted rather
Yeah.
than us being able to cast it. So as much as like I'm really grateful that we got to make a film, with quite a nice budget for a first film, I would love to remake that film. I'd love to be given another budget and but the free reign to, I mean, even the script was changed, the ending was different, the characters were, different.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was an experience. And then I went on the following year to do a film called Bad Moon Rising, and that was the complete opposite. That was literally with zero budget. We fed people, paid for travel, accommodation and stuff, but nobody got paid, and it was a completely different experience. I mean, the films, it was, you can tell it's on zero budget, but everybody had a really really nice time on it. It was like a really nice on-set experience.
Good. No, that's. I mean, I think been having been in a few short films and that myself, I think that is a big thing of it. If you can make sure that the people involved in the film, crew, cast and crew, have a good time while they're making
Mhm.
it, that's the main thing because it makes for a good atmosphere on the film.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, that was a long time ago, and that was when I was still quite new to it, and I hadn't directed those, I'd just written and produced. Um, but I was still doing films at that time for no money because I was, getting the experience and getting the footage together for a show reel. So I think, if everybody's in that kind of same boat, they don't mind doing it.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Um, so, but since then, did you do part of the horoscopes, one of the
Yes.
horoscope
I
anthologies?
did I did a part in all three of them actually.
Oh, all right.
So I'd worked with MJ Dixon on Pandemonium, and I'd known him from the festival circuit, and I'd known him for a long time. And it was actually him, I think actually he came and shot a final scene for me on Bad Moon Rising. I changed some of the cast and I
Right.
shot a scene, a horror on sea, and it was such a standalone scene. I said to MJ, would you mind shooting it for me? And he said no. And even though I wasn't directing that film, it was just one scene. So I didn't even think about it as me directing. I just directed it, I guess. It was a scene with Tony Marden and Maria Lee Metheringham. And then after that, MJ had the idea for horoscopes. This is a few years later. And he said, I think you're ready to direct. And I never would have thought of it actually. I wasn't planning on directing at all. And I was like, okay, well, I'm always up for a challenge. So I said yes to that one. And if once I had the script together, it was easy. But for me, I find it easier to write a feature film than a short film
Right.
because you've got your character development, you've got you've got your three acts, you've got, an arc and a story. Whereas a lot of short films, it's telling a story in that really, 5 minutes or however long. I think our limit was about 6 minutes. I think mine ended up being 7 minutes or something.
Right.
Um, And I found it a real struggle to get a script together to start with. And after that, and I said never again. I was like, I'm never doing another short film. And then he really liked my piece, flattered my ego, and asked me back for part two. And I couldn't say no. So I said yes to him again. And then I did. So Gemini was my piece in the first one. And then the second one was Chinese horoscopes, and I got given Dragon. So I was lucky enough to be able to entice Judy Matheson to come on and play the lead. I wasn't going to be in that one at all, but then I decided I wanted a little bit of screen time with her. So I kind of gave myself a really small role, but mainly that one I was more just directing. And then he decided to make it a trilogy, and I thought, well, I've done the first two, I'll come back for the last one. And then I did Hunger, but I actually shot that in the northeast, so that was after I'd moved here.
Right.
So yeah, I think shot that 2023. I would have shot that.
Yeah, I've seen all three of
It's
the
in on.
episodes. I think they're all three anthologies work really well.
Mm,
He found some really good people to direct the short films, and they all work together. And that's something I find sometimes with an anthology film is difficult. You've
yeah.
got different directors getting it to all kind of work across the whole thing.
Yeah, that's the thing, I think. So I've never been a huge anthology fan watching them, because I feel like different directors have different styles, and if you've got different people doing the pieces, it's all a bit like you'll like some of them and you won't like some of them. I mean, I my one of my favorite films though is kind of an anthology. It's, do you know, Trick or Treat?
Yeah,
And it was, so it's an anthology, but all of the stories intertwine really well. And I think that's the perfect example of a really well done anthology. Obviously, it had a huge budget, which,
yeah, yeah.
and that's the thing. A lot of people are making
Characters.
anthologies because we don't have huge budgets, and it's a way of making a film on the cheap.
Absolutely, definitely. Um, so what things have you got coming up that are going to be coming out in the next sort of year or so?
Well, I've been quite quiet since I've moved. And obviously, like I said, I started the podcast to give me something to do. And I've been working on a lot of YouTube content. So I've been doing like a vegan vamp cooking show. I've been doing like out and about videos, and I'm wanting to do like a haunted hikes type thing. So I'm still working on that. So I've been creating a lot of my own content because I'm kind of far away from my network, really. But I've got a feature script that's been almost ready to go for ages, and I need to give that a good look and maybe a rewrite, and then try and, but it's one that's going to need a bit more of a budget. It's a bit more adventurous, I think, than the other ones I've made. So I need to kind of put a team together and try and work out how we can get that made. And here's me saying I'm not a huge fan on the whole of anthologies, but I do have an idea for an anthology. But again, this one's early stages, but I would probably be involved in writing all three of the segments, so it would, or directing. So it'd be an anthology,
Right,
but it would all be from one team rather than, different people. So those are the ones that I've kind of got plans for this year. But as far as stuff coming out, Video Shop 2, which I mentioned, that's the pre-order or pre-sales is opening this evening at 8. So at the time of us filming this, it's Horror on Sea is happening. This is like the first year in a long time that I haven't been there. But I didn't have anything screening apart from the Horror on Sea 13 years documentary this year, which I narrated. So they're releasing the pre-sales at the same time as that screening tonight.
right, okay.
So
Um, Now I've obviously seen you a number of times at the Romford Horror Film Festival. Will you be there this year?
I'm not sure. At the moment, I don't have plans to, and it depends what's happening work-wise, because I'm also a holistic therapist. So I have a lot of kind of online sound baths and clients, and I do Reiki and crystal healing. So
Right.
it depends what I've got going on really as to whether I can make it. But again, I don't think I've got anything in Romford this year,
Oh,
because I had a quiet year last year. I think last year I only shot one film, which went straight to DVD because it was already with a distribution company. So he had like, a pre-deal. So he didn't need to do the festivals. And
right.
so I think I need to make some movies so that I can come back to the festivals next year.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure there are lots of people out there that'd be happy to give you a role in any films they're making.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I've recently signed to a new agent, so we'll see.
all right. Okay. So, I mean, as far as horror films go, what are your sort of what's your kind of preference for watching horror films? What sort of films do you like?
So I really got into horror as a teenager, and that was kind of the late 90s, early noughties. And it was when there was that real resurgence of the slasher movie, but it
Right.
was Scream, Urban Legend, I Know What You Did Last Summer. And it was the first time I think horror really had a decent budget.
Yeah.
I think horror movies were always made on much lower budgets, and then Scream came in, and they were all very glossy and very well made, and the scripts were great. They were very well thought out, and that was kind of the era that I was just like, I love these movies, and I love a jump scare. And I know not everybody does, but I love a slasher movie. I love a jump scare, and I think that's probably because I'm very easy to make jump. Like even if I know a jump scare's coming, I will still jump, and they get me every time. And I prefer that than the all-out gore, which is a bit
Yeah.
much. So
Yeah.
yeah, for me, slashers, and those are probably still my favorite films. Or The Craft. I mean, that's the same era. That's one of my favorite films.
Yeah. I must admit, I kind of my teenage years were the first sort of right flow of slashers with things like the original Halloween and Friday the
Yeah,
13th and that sort of thing. But then I got into it again when there was some of them came out in the 90s, sort of cheaper budget ones in the 90s, and then again in the 2000s when they came back, it was like,
yeah.
uh,
Yeah, but I mean, last year was a pretty good year for horror. But I think it was because, again, I'm not a fan of a remake, but with the reboot of I Know What You Did Last Summer, kind of gave me, as a fan of the original, exactly what I wanted because it
yeah,
kept the original characters and it was the same outline, really. Kids did something last summer and it's come back to get them. But I loved that. And I think I don't know whether it was like a slight nostalgia there. And also Final Destination Bloodlines out last year.
yes, that was
Again, they changed the rules, which I loved. But again, I don't know whether I loved it so much because I remember it from, you know, the origins.
yeah, no, I know what you mean. I when I saw that at the pictures, I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
They finished the whole thing off so well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
So yeah, I feel like I feel like good horror is making a comeback. Like there was a lot last year. This year's got quite a lot coming out. Scream 7's coming out. Ready or Not 2 is coming out. So I
and
feel like
I
there'll be
mean,
some good stuff.
the interesting thing is that for the first time I can remember, horror is actually seeing a lot of recognition at things like the Oscars and other award
Yeah.
ceremonies, which it hasn't done in the past.
No.
Mm. So that's a good thing. Is there any particular horror movie that you would love to have been in or would like to be in if they did a reboot or a remake?
I ask this question to people too. I would love to be in the Scream franchise because I'm such a huge fan of it. Or if they did I mean, I know they did a kind of reboot of The Craft, which was rubbish. If they did a sequel, a years later sequel to The Craft, I'd love to do that. I haven't done any witchy roles. Like I've been a vampire. I've like, yeah, I haven't done anything witchy, and I feel like I'd like to do that.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
I could see that working very well.
mm.
Okay. Thank you very much for being on the show. It's been great
No
talking to you.
worries.
Um, I may see you at Romford if you manage to get there. If not this
Yeah.
year, then maybe
If
next year.
not, yeah, this year I need to make some movies so the next year I can show off at all the festivals.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's always good to see you there. It's been fantastic to have you on here.
Thank
Um,
you.
Everybody out there, I will post, as I always do, links to Dani's social media and her podcast. So if you haven't done so already, have a watch or a listen to her podcast and check her films out if you don't know them. Thank you, Dani.
Thank you for having me.
It's been great. Thank you. Thanks to everybody for watching, and we'll hope to see you again soon. Bye. The Sciforror Film Podcast.